My name is Dr. Sable Cain. The security alert pinged my phone at 2:47 p.m., a clean, clinical tone slicing through the muffled hum of the Treasury conference room. I was 300 meters away in Washington, D.C., seated in a classified briefing about a securities fraud pattern that had begun jumping borders like a contagious thought, so I knew with absolute certainty that whoever had triggered my apartment door sensor shouldn't be there. I angled my phone under the table, screened the notification, and felt my jaw harden. My system had flagged entry, then movement, then office door tamper. Years of clearance checks had taught me what to do, nothing reckless, everything by protocol. I excused myself with the quiet apology and stepped into the corridor where the fluorescent lights hummed like a taut wire. On my phone, the live camera feed resolved into a crisp image, my living room afternoon light thrown in hard bands across the rug. There she was, Vanessa, moving with that loose-limbed entitlement she'd perfected since childhood, as if rooms rearranged themselves to please her. She didn't linger over the framed photographs or the shelves lined with black binders. She walked straight to my office door, tested the knob, and then, as if remembering a trick, took out a tension wrench and pick. It took her 4 minutes. Not bad for an amateur with YouTube bravado. The door opened. She glanced over her shoulder. My camera saw everything and slipped inside. I switched feeds. In my office, she made directly for the framed organizational map of the Treasury Department. She lifted it with care and exhaled a small, satisfied laugh when the safe's keypad blinked awake. Her fingers hovered, then tried our mother's birthday, then our father's, then her own, a soft litany of narcissism. When that failed, she pulled out her phone and opened an app. I watched her hold the device inches from the keypad, lips parted in concentration. The progress bar crawled. 5 minutes later, the mechanism clicked. She opened the door with a flourish. You reserve for presents, you believe are yours. She reached into the safe and pulled out 3 sealed folders, confused, when they weren't stacks of cash. She handled them like props, as if their weight might tell her what they were. I knew exactly what she was holding. Bearer bonds issued by the United States Treasury. Total face value $500,000. Registered instruments serialized tracked. Not trinkets, not heirlooms. Federal property under my custody for an investigation I couldn't discuss. She slid the folders into her oversized purse, closed the safe, and left my apartment with the same careless confidence she'd used to enter it. I stood in the fluorescent corridor and let the cold settle in my bones. Then I made 3 calls. First to my direct supervisor, second to the Treasury Inspector General's office, third to the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force. The responses were immediate and uniform lockdown report, the theft through official channels. Do not attempt to recover the instruments yourself. Those are registered, my supervisor said, voice taut. We'll track them, but Sable, your sister, just committed multiple federal crimes. I understand, I said, and I did. Better than anyone. On the train north, my reflection drifted over tunnel glass, neat bun, neutral. Si suit sais. A face schooled into stillness, and I cataloged options like I would in a risk matrix. Call Vanessa directly. Beg bargain. That fantasy dissolved against the reality of my clearance. If I intervened off-book and she destroyed evidence, I'd be complicit. If I said nothing and those bonds moved, I could shatter a case meant to protect markets bigger than our family. My duty wasn't negotiable. Still, old instincts scratched the part of me conditioned to smooth things over, so no one had to see the mess. By 7, I stood in my parents' doorway in Philadelphia, where a family dinner had assembled itself like a ritual, Mom ferrying dishes to the table, Dad carving the roast with performative precision, Uncle Mike pouring too much wine, and Derek, Vanessa's husband, doing that thing he does with his phone when he's nervous, checking it without seeing. Vanessa sat aflame in a dress that caught the light thumbs flicking across her screen like she was conducting an orchestra of admirers. Sable Mom said. Startled, what a surprise. I had time, I said. Thought I'd stop by. Vanessa looked up, that nearly convincing smile sliding into place. Hey, big sister, how's the paper pushing? It has its moments, I said, taking my seat. We ate. Polite questions, practiced answers. Derek chimed in about exciting financial opportunities. Vanessa toyed with her glass and said, We've been making some sophisticated moves. Securities stuff. The advisor says the returns will be obscene. Her eyes glinted toward me. Oh, I said mild as a librarian. Where'd you get the capital savings? Derek said too quickly. Vanessa laughed. And a little help from fate. Mom beamed at the phrase. Fate. The family myth for anything Vanessa wanted but hadn't earned. When I set my fork down, the room quieted, as if it knew what was coming. I hear you stopped by my apartment, I said. Borrowed a book. Vanessa's smile widened a millimeter. Mom and Dad still had your emergency key. You never lock anything interesting, Sable. I figured I'd pick up that title you mentioned. You didn't mention a title I said. It must have slipped my mind. She tapped her purse. I found something better. You really should change your safe combination, though. Using Mom's birthday is practically begging me to help. Mom looked from one of us to the other, baffled. Safe, Vanessa laughed. Oh, come on. She's been hiding papers behind that boring Treasury map. They looked ancient. Grandpa vibes. She waved a hand. Anyway, they're just old government bonds. The advisor says we can cash them out for, I don't know, maybe 10 grand if we're lucky. We'll reinvest for real returns. Honestly, I'm doing you a favor, Sable. She placed the 3 folders on the linen tablecloth like trophies. The room's temperature seemed to drop. Dad stopped carving. Uncle Mike's wineglass hovered midair. Derek stared at the embossed seal's throat bobbing. Vanessa, I said softly, did you break into my home? Don't be dramatic, she said. I used a key. Family doesn't break into family. Did you force my locked office door? She shrugged. It wasn't exactly Fort Knox. Did you bypass my safe using an app? Anyone could. She said, careless as a shrug, and my mother nodded faintly, as if that logic made sense, as if the ease of a theft reduced the crime. I looked at my parents. She defeated a secured lock, compromised an electronic safe, and removed federal property from my custody. Mom blinked fast. Federal? Those aren't Grandpa's bonds, I said. They're United States Treasury bearer bonds. Serial numbers registered and tracked. I maintain them as part of my work investigating securities fraud. Their movement is monitored in a federal database. The moment anyone attempts to verify or cache them, systems flag it automatically. I reported the theft hours ago. The words lay gentle on the table. Their weight was not. Color drained from Vanessa's face, then surged back in a blotchy rush of anger. You're making this up to scare me, she said. You never tell us anything about your precious job, and now suddenly you're secret agent Sable. I work with classified instruments, I said. I couldn't tell you, even if you'd asked. We do ask, Mom protested reflexively, defending the shape of our family myth. You say it's complicated and change the subject. I turn to her. I say it's classified, and you change the subject. Vanessa flicked her eyes at Derek, looking for a cue the way she always had. He stared at his phone as if waiting for it to save him. The advisor said they could be processed, Vanessa insisted. But there was a tremor now, the kind that betrays a person who has finally realized the ground beneath them is not a floor, but a trap door. Your advisor is required by law to verify federal instruments, I said. Compliance would flag them, then notify Treasury. Even if I hadn't reported the theft, you'd have been tracked. She's your sister, Dad said, voice low, like a warning or a plea. This is a family matter. No, I said. It's a federal matter that happens to involve family. I watched the understanding crawl over their faces, how the dinner table had become an evidence table, how years of minimization and jokes about my boring government job had hidden the truth in plain sight. Uncle Mike cleared his throat. What happens now? We wait, I said. I folded my hands in my lap. Fingers steady because I'd chosen that steadiness hours ago, standing under fluorescent lights while my sister emptied my safe. The doorbell rang. It wasn't timid. It rang, then rang again, followed by a firm knock that reverberated through the foyer and into the dining room, vibrating the utensils. A woman's voice, authoritative and flat, carried through the house. Treasury Inspector General, we need to speak with Vanessa Morrison. The room froze the way deer freeze when headlights pin them to the road. Vanessa stared at me as if I had conjured this outcome out of malice, not protocol. Derek's chair scraped the floor. Mom pressed a napkin to her mouth. Dad's face drained to paper. Uncle Mike set his wine down at last, the glass chiming against the wood. I stood feeling the 1,000 tiny decisions that had brought us here align like a lock clicking open. Sable, Vanessa whispered, And for a heartbeat, we were girls again, her hand around something she wanted and mine empty. Don't, she began. But what came next wasn't mine to stop. It never had been. The knocking grew sharper, echoing through the house like a countdown neither of us could silence. Mom clutched her pearls, as if that could steady her. Dad hesitated halfway to the door, torn between protecting his daughter and obeying the voice outside that carried all the weight of the federal government. Vanessa's voice cracked into a pleading whisper. Dad, don't open it, please. Sable's exaggerating. It's a misunderstanding. The knock came again 3 times harder. Treasury Inspector General, we have a warrant. Dad opened the door. 4 federal agents stepped inside black jackets marked with the gold seal. Their presence shrank the room. Even the air seemed to thin. The lead agent, a woman with her hair pulled into a tight bun, held up her credentials. Special Agent Lisa Martinez, Treasury Inspector General. We're here for Vanessa Morrison. We also need to recover 3 United States Treasury bearer bonds reported stolen at 2:47 p.m. today. Vanessa stumbled to her feet, eyes darting from me to the agents. This is insane. They're just papers. Agent Martinez's tone didn't waver. Ma'am, those papers are serialized federal instruments, total face value $500,000. You're in possession of stolen government property. Mom's voice broke through the thick silence. Wait, there must be a mistake. She's my daughter. She wouldn't. Ma'am, Martinez said, turning just enough to acknowledge her without softening. We have a signed warrant and verified surveillance footage. I stayed seated. My fingers were laced in my lap to stop their tremor. Vanessa's panic morphed into defiance. Sable's setting me up. She's jealous because everyone knows she's the boring one sitting behind a desk pretending she's important. Agent Martinez gestured toward the folders on the table. Are those the bonds? Derek's voice came out strangled. Yes. He pushed the folders forward as if they might burn him. Vanessa Morrison Martinez said you are under arrest for theft of government property, defeating federal security measures, and attempted securities fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Vanessa backed away, shaking her head. No, you can't, Mom, tell them. Mom clung to her husband's arm, whispering prayers. Dad's jaw trembled, eyes glossy. Martinez continued evenly. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Vanessa lunged toward me. Do something. You're my sister. I stood slowly. I did, I said. I followed the law. 2 agents stepped forward, guiding her hands behind her back. The metallic click of handcuffs sliced through the room. Vanessa's voice broke into sobs. You're ruining my life over some stupid bonds. Agent Martinez corrected her softly. Over $500,000 in protected federal securities. They led her toward the foyer. Mom reached out but couldn't find words. Derek didn't move. The only sound was the shuffle of polished shoes on hardwood and Vanessa's muffled protests fading toward the door. When the SUV engines started outside, the house seemed to exhale. I looked down at the empty spots where the folders had been. The tablecloth was still creased beneath them, faint outlines like ghosts. Uncle Mike spoke first. Sable, what the hell just happened? I met his eyes. I did my job. Mom turned to me trembling. Your job? She's your sister. How could you let them take her like a criminal? She is a criminal, I said quietly. If I'd ignored it, I'd be one too. Dad's voice shook. Over money. Over federal property, I corrected. If I hadn't reported the theft, I'd lose my clearance, my career, maybe my freedom. There's no exception for family. Mom's tears spilled. You could have warned her. I did, I said. For 30 years. They didn't understand. Couldn't. Their silence filled with all the years they'd smiled indulgently when Vanessa broke rules and expected the world to applaud. Agent Martinez reappeared at the doorway, her voice more measured now. Dr. Cain, the bonds have been secured. All serial numbers match your report. The field office will need you at 9 a.m. tomorrow to verify and sign the chain of custody documents. I'll be there, I said. She nodded, hesitated. We also found search history on Mrs. Morrison's phone, lockpicking tutorials, safe apps, and threads about cashing Treasury bonds. 2 weeks' worth. She planned this. The weight of it pressed through my chest. 2 weeks. Long enough to change her mind 100 times. Long enough to not. When the agents left, the silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was heavier, like smoke that wouldn't clear. Uncle Mike rubbed a hand over his face. Vanessa always thought she was untouchable, he muttered. Dad sank into a chair, shoulders caving in. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, I said. It was a choice. Derek finally spoke, voice brittle. She told me you said she could have them, that they were old family bonds. That's what she told herself, so she could do it, I replied. Mom stared at me as if I'd become someone else. You should have stopped her, Sable. Called her. Anything but this. I followed protocol, I said, calm but trembling inside. You don't call a suspect mid-crime. You document, report, and secure the evidence. That's the rule. Dad's hand slammed the table. She's your blood. So is the country I serve, I said. The words startled even me with their precision. No one answered. The old grandfather clock ticked loud enough to fill the gaps between us. Finally, Uncle Mike asked, "What happens now?" "She'll be charged," I said. "Probably with theft, fraud, and tampering. The U.S. attorney will decide how hard they go." Mom's lips quivered. How long? Agent Martinez had told us before she left, but I repeated it because pretending ignorance wouldn't soften reality. Up to 35 years, depending on counts. Mom gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. She has children. Children she used as an excuse for a crime. I said, then softened. I wish it weren't like this. But she didn't steal from me, Mom. She stole from the Treasury, from the government, from everyone. Dad's face was pale, mouth opening to argue, but finding no words. I rose, collecting my bag. I'll give my statement tomorrow. After that, it's out of my hands. No one stopped me. As I stepped into the cold night porch light flickering above, I heard Mom's voice behind me, small and breaking. You always were the difficult one. The words hit not like a knife, but like a confirmation of something I'd known since we were children. Difficult, not favored. The one who kept rules when the rest of them broke them and laughed. I walked down the path toward the black SUVs parked under the streetlight. Inside one, Vanessa sat, her face turned away, framed by the faint red glow of the taillights. For a moment, I thought she looked like she had when she was 12, tearful after getting caught, stealing from a neighbor's wallet. And how Dad had said, "Don't make her feel bad, Sable. She's just impulsive." History repeats, I thought, until the cost becomes unbearable. When the SUVs pulled away, their lights swallowed the street. Behind me, my parents' house stood perfectly still, curtains drawn like a stage after the last line of a tragedy no one wanted to perform. Inside my coat pocket, my phone buzzed again, a notification from the Treasury system confirming receipt of recovered instruments. I stared at it until the screen dimmed, the reflection of my face vanishing into black glass. By morning, the headlines would never mention our names. They'd simply say, "Philadelphia woman arrested for theft of federal securities." And that was the strangest comfort of all anonymity in the aftermath of truth. The trial took 9 months. 9 months of hearings, filings, and media silence enforced by federal non-disclosure agreements. 9 months of my parents calling less and less of Derek, leaving awkward voicemails that began with "I didn't know" and ended with apologies I couldn't absorb. 9 months of my name tucked into sealed evidence reports under Dr. S. Cain, custodian of instruments. Vanessa pleaded not guilty. Her attorney built an argument around ignorance and family misunderstanding, that she thought the bonds belonged to our late grandfather, that she believed I'd given permission. He said I'd overreacted, that this was a sibling feud inflated by government overreach. He never mentioned the security footage until the prosecutor played it for the jury. It was perfect clinical damning. There was Vanessa on camera, picking my lock, running the app, smiling when the safe opened. My voice from the recorded call to the Inspector General, steady, formal, unemotional. Each image, another nail, sealing her story shut. When her phone records came next, searches for how to open a safe, how to cash, Treasury bonds, can family claim old government bonds. Her lawyer's shoulders slumped. I didn't attend every day. Watching my sister crumble in real time wasn't justice, it was erosion. But the days I did go, I sat behind the prosecutor's table silent, my badge clipped to my jacket, the air in the courtroom tasting faintly of metal and air conditioning. Derek sat 3 rows behind her. He'd lost weight, his wedding ring gone, eyes hollow. Mom and Dad sat together, always clutching something, her tissue, his hat, some relic of hope that maybe this hearing, this motion, would make it all go away. When the prosecutor called me to testify, the courtroom tilted into a hush. I walked to the stand and took the oath, feeling every heartbeat in my throat. Dr. Cain, the prosecutor, said, "Can you explain your role at the Treasury Department?" "I'm a senior financial analyst with the Securities Fraud Investigation Division. I specialize in forensic tracing of bearer instruments. And the 3 bearer bonds in question were federal securities under my custodial responsibility, linked to an ongoing fraud investigation. Their removal triggered a federal response protocol." He nodded. "Did you authorize anyone, including the defendant, to access or remove those securities from your safe?" "No. Did you personally observe the theft? Yes. The footage appeared on the monitor. Vanessa avoided the screen jaw tight. The prosecutor let the silence stretch before asking, "Did you recognize the individual in that recording?" "Yes, my sister." He paused. "Did you attempt to intervene?" "I followed protocol," I said. "I reported the theft through official channels." The defense attorney rose. "Dr. Cain, did you ever tell your sister about the nature of your work?" "I couldn't. It's classified." "So she couldn't have known these were sensitive documents." "She knew they weren't hers," I said. "She opened a locked door, cracked a safe, and concealed what she took." "You don't do that with something you think you own." The judge sustained no objections. My testimony ended quickly, but the damage had been done long before I spoke. When the financial advisor took the stand, he confirmed everything. Vanessa had contacted him the next morning, asking how to cash old government bonds, requesting no questions asked processing. He'd immediately filed a compliance alert with Treasury before the arrest even occurred. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts, 3 federal charges each, carrying separate sentences. When the judge read the verdict, Vanessa sobbed, covering her face with shaking hands. Mom cried quietly into Dad's shoulder. Derek stared at the floor, lips moving like he was whispering prayers that came too late. Sentencing came 2 months later. The courtroom was nearly empty. Even sympathy had grown tired. Judge Hanlon adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Vanessa. "You didn't steal from a stranger," he said. "You stole from your sister, a person entrusted with safeguarding the financial instruments of this nation. You violated her trust, her home, and the laws that protect every citizen. The court cannot dismiss this as a family dispute." He sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison, plus restitution of $500,000 and $150,000 in fines for security violations. Vanessa screamed as if pain could rewrite the verdict. The guards led her away. Mom and Dad didn't look at me when they left the courtroom. Derek followed them, shoulders bowed. I stayed behind until the room emptied, staring at the empty defense table, the stack of exhibits neatly filed away. Somewhere deep down, I wanted the relief to feel like victory. It didn't. It just felt clean, like a wound finally cauterized. 3 years passed. I didn't plan them. They simply happened. Mornings became case briefings. Nights became quiet dinners eaten over reports. My work grew, and so did my authority. I was promoted to supervisory analyst, overseeing 12 investigators. My clearance advanced to TS Sod SCI. The Secretary of the Treasury handed me a Distinguished Service Award for helping dismantle an international laundering ring that recovered $340 million in fraudulent bonds. My parents didn't attend the ceremony. I didn't send an invitation. Vanessa was transferred to a federal facility in West Virginia. The first letter came 6 months into her sentence. It began with, "I'm sorry," and ended with, "Can you talk to the prosecutor about reducing the restitution?" The second letter came a year later, another apology wrapped around another request for money, this time to help her kids. The third letter just said, "I've learned my lesson. Please help me come home sooner." I didn't reply. Not out of vengeance, but because every rescue breeds another fall. Some lessons only take root when you stop cushioning the impact. My apartment is different now. Military-grade security, biometric locks, AI surveillance that monitors motion even in my absence. Treasury paid for the upgrade. The hum of the system at night is oddly comforting, a steady reminder that vigilance matters. I still keep a key with my parents. They've never used it. Sometimes when I open the encrypted safe in my office, I see the new bonds lying in their precise formation and think about how small they are, how $500,000 in paper can weigh less than a pound, yet destroy an entire family. Last month, I almost sent my parents the news article about my latest case. The headline read, U.S. Treasury analyst leads international recovery of $2.3 billion in stolen securities. I thought about attaching a note that said, "Boring office job right." Instead, I filed the article with my commendations and got back to work. There's peace in purpose. The market doesn't care who loves or forgets you. The work is its own validation. I've stopped waiting for my family to recognize my worth. The bonds don't need their approval to have value, and neither do I. Vanessa writes once every few months now. Her handwriting is smaller, her words cautious. She still signs every letter the same way, "Love you, sis." I don't doubt that she means it. But love without accountability is just another lie we tell ourselves to sleep better. I close her letters, file them under correspondence no response, and lock them away. Then I turn to the next case. Somewhere, another name has been added to a list of stolen securities, another thread in the global web I've made my life's work to untangle. This is where my story stays, not in the shadow of what my sister took, but in the quiet certainty of what I've built. The work is enough. The truth is enough. And this time, no one can steal it.